Mayor, take the clock.
Okay. Call the roll.
Mayor Bain,
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Petalenda,
Here.
Councilman Best,
Present.
Councilwoman Mitchell,
Here.
and Councilman Head.
Here.
The invocation, please stand. Vice Mayor Petrolano.
Please stand if you're able. Folks, I see a lot of fighting going on in our country right now. Sons against fathers, friends against friends, mothers against daughters. I witnessed this in my country of birth, Cuba. I witnessed this. I was a small child. This is not a good thing what's happening to our country right now. So Lord, I ask you to please guide us, unite us, and heal us, because a country divided is a country in peril. Amen.
Say the pledge, hats off. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Presentation. Is she here? Mary? Maria, I mean. No?
She's online.
They're on Zoom.
Oh, on Zoom, okay.
We have Maria Alzate, who's the FDOT Community Outreach Specialist for the State Road 948 Northwest 32nd Street from the Palmetto to US 1 Biscayne Boulevard. Multimodal corridor study that is being undertaken, and I requested that they come in today and give the city more or less a briefing on what's involved. So Maria, it's all yours.
Good evening, everybody. We do have here with us today the FDOT project manager, Carlos Castro, and the consultant project manager, Daphne Spanos, who will be doing the presentation for this project. So Carlos, if you want to go ahead and take over.
Thank you, Maria, and good afternoon, good evening. It seems like it's almost 10 p.m. with any time around us. My name is Carlos Castro. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation, District 6, and I am the project manager for this multimodal corridor study. Next slide, please. Before I get into the agenda, we got a couple of slides in here that are standard material. I guess we missed it there as far as our team. Let me present our team. As I mentioned, I'm the project manager. We have some consultant, our consultant project manager, Daphne Spanos with EXP, and you heard from Maria earlier. And we have several sub-consultants available as part of our team. Next slide. This is a slide that I was talking about a little earlier as far as Title VI and civil rights. But in any case, let me get into the agenda. I want to start with the presentation before I turn it over to our consultant project manager by letting the council members and vice mayor and mayor know that this is a planning effort. It's strictly a conceptual effort to look at potential recommendations to improve the corridor, and I'll get into the details of the corridor. The main purpose of our presentation obviously is a briefing. We're in the very beginning of our planning effort, and we're looking to hear from our community. I'll tell you that the department in general relies heavily on, on actual community input, participation. We want your advice. We want to hear from those that are actually drive the corridor and understand the corridor better than anybody. And those are the general users in the vicinity. Obviously, the folks on the city of Miami Springs are quite aware of what's happening in that corridor. Our corridor is pretty lengthy. We're looking at almost 9 miles, and Daphne in a few minutes will get into the final the details of the project itself. But as I mentioned, we look for advice, we look for participation We call that, we have different names for that, stakeholder engagement, public outreach, public engagement. It all means the same thing. And that is we want to hear from the general public. As a department, cannot do this alone. We want to hear from you folks. I'll tell you, this project came about with several stakeholders that brought it up to our attention dating back to 2014. So it's been in our radar for quite some time. We certainly heard from the city of Miami Springs, quite a few years ago. We heard from Miami International Airport in your backyard. They wanted to know what the department was doing in our state roadway or state highway system, specifically in Northwest 36th Street, which happens to be one of those facilities that the department has jurisdiction. Again, the limits of the project, and again, Daphne will get into details. It's pretty lengthy, about 8-9 miles. It's Palmetto all the way to US 1 as it's titled. But mainly, we want to convey that message that we want to hear from you folks. And again, it's the general objective of the study itself is to look at ways that we can improve the core. I use the word multimodal because we're going to look at all the modes of transportation. I happen to belong to an office within the department that's called modal development, and this modal development office houses all the modes of transportation, transit. We actually have some of the rail folks in our office. We have folks that manage the aviation and seaport programs and the free mobility program as well, who I happen to lead. But essentially, we wanted to convey that message. We're not at a design phase. We're not definitely far from a construction phase. We're not doing right-of-way taking. We're not doing any of that stuff. Right now, we're looking at high-level potential conceptual improvements in the corridor. And that may entail a variety of strategies that we can use to look at how we can improve the corridor. We know there's congestion. That's a recurrent problem throughout the county, and I would say throughout the nation in general, especially in highly urbanized areas. So we know about that. We'll tell you a little bit about our public involvement or schedule and how this is going to come about, since we've already met with several stakeholders or interested parties, whether they're on the HOA or homeowners associations area, businesses, and also as of recently with some of our freight mobility or trucking stakeholders. So we're going across to hear from everyone, to hear some input, to hear some ideas, to hear what your problems are, what are the recurrent issues, and then finally we'll get into the schedule, since we have several other activities planned on the public involvement, public engagement, or collaboration side. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our project manager from the consultant side here. Daphne Spanos is our PM or project manager. So Daphne, step up.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Carlos, for that introduction. Again, I'm Daphne Spanos with EXP US Services, and we're so happy to be supporting the department on this important project. As Carlos mentioned, the study area is almost 9 miles long, and it starts at the Palmetto Expressway or State Road 826 in the west, and it goes all the way east to US 1. So as you can see here, Northwest 36th Street, as all of you are probably so familiar with, goes through Virginia Gardens, Miami Springs, Hialeah, bordering Miami International Airport. So we see it goes through a variety of municipalities. And then the Iron Triangle area, which we're calling Lejeune Road, Northwest 36th Street, and State Road 112. And as we move along further east, the eastern segment looks differently than the western segment. It goes through unincorporated Miami, the city of Hialeah, city of Miami, and also going through some areas such as Miami Design District in the east and Wynwood, and also bypassing 2 Metro rail stations, Arlington Heights and Allapattah Station. So really the corridor serves a variety of businesses, residents, schools, parks, and municipalities. And we call this the eastern segment because, as noted, the western segment is different in its context from the eastern segment. The roadway has a different amount of lanes, a different speed in the west than in the east, as well as different levels of congestion. So moving right along, what is the purpose of this study? Well, the goals of this study are to evaluate the existing conditions
as Carlos noted, to conduct public and intergovernmental coordination, and that's why we're here with you today. It's very important for us to get the City of Miami Springs and other agencies and municipalities' feedback. With that data that we're collecting, we forecast the future needs of the corridor. Then we come up with alternative improvements with our data collection plus with your feedback. We recommend appropriate improvements, and then finally, we move into the subsequent phases of the project. The next phase of this project, again, we're in the planning phase, would be the project development and environment phase. So there have been numerous amounts of previous studies done in the corridor, probably for well over 30 years, and there's been dozens of studies done. We have researched the studies in particular done in your city in Miami Springs. For example, the 36th Street District Traffic Impact Study, the Curtis Parkway Traffic Study. In addition, there have been studies done by Miami International Airport detailing the freight and cargo needs, as that's a very important component of Northwest 36th Street, serving that industry, as well as the Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization, or the TPO studies, for example, connecting the highway missing links and the Miami-Dade Freight Plan. So moving right along, DOT has just about wrapped up a study here that is at the Iron Triangle Interchange. Again, that Iron Triangle, the triangular shape being formed by State Road 112, 36th Street and Lejeune Road. And there have been some concepts and recommendations coming out of that study, which we're coordinating with, as well as the Miami-Dade County SMART plan, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that plan to implement rapid transit on several corridors within Miami-Dade County. And so as part of our efforts, we're trying to coordinate, again, any concepts and improvements we come up with those important studies in the area. So we have been collecting data for all modes. The study started in late March, early April, and we've been collecting data for the intermodal modes, which are the freight, rail, and aviation, those are very important modes of transportation using the corridor. And of course, very important transportation modes using the corridor are also the multimodal modes, which are the transit, the bicyclists, pedestrians, and the vehicles, or the people driving their cars. So FDOT District 6 has also been conducting and completed several sub-area freight efforts in the study area, including Medley, Opelika, Miami River, Doral, Miami Gardens, Hialeah, Homestead, and a county-wide freight plan. And again, these freight plans we have been looking into because they have been coming up with some recommendations, and some of which affect the study area. So this shows where our project is in the transportation project delivery process. And this is important because a lot of people want to know, well, when will I see something? When will this affect me? Am I going to see something in the next couple of years? And basically each phase in this process does take approximately 2 years, or it could take even a little bit more. So right now we are in the transportation planning phase, or the dark blue phase towards the left, where we're noting the existing conditions, the needs. We're coordinating with the long-range transportation plan of the county and FDOT's work program. And then that project gets screened and it goes into the next phase, which is the PD&E, or Project Development and Environment phase. And this is really to meet the federal process of NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, and to make sure that all the environmental documents meet federal approvals. After that, the project, if there is funding available, would go into the design and the construction phase. So again, right now we are in the planning phase, or the dark blue phase to the left.
And if I may add a couple of points on that slide, can you go back to the project delivery for the committee members and council members? I wanted to point out at the very bottom of that graphic, we have in purple a public outreach and interagency coordination phase that's very important to us. And that phase, or that process, is ever present in every single phase. So my point here is that the department, as it continues to this project delivery cycle, whether you're in a PD&E phase, a design phase, or at the very end towards a construction phase, you are always going to be hearing from the department at every step of the way. Planning phase as it is right now, you're hearing from us. We'll continue that public outreach, but at the same time, as I said, you'll continue to hear in multiple phases. So this is the very beginning. The public outreach, again, will continue in every single phase as we move forward with the project. That's all I wanted to point out in this slide. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. So the purpose and need, why are we doing this study? So there are several objectives that we're taking into account and why we're doing this study. FDOT is very concerned with safety, safety objectives for all users of the roadway, mobility efficiency or the ability to move people and goods, economic prosperity, which is very important, especially now since we've been in this COVID pandemic, to maintain that economic prosperity, freight mobility, because as we noted, MIA, the freight movement, for example, between MIA and Doral and the surrounding businesses is very important on this corridor. And then multimodal access, serving all users of the roadway, bike, ped, transit, vehicles, and freight, and intermodal. And also, we need to always consider environmental protection in whatever concepts or recommendations we come up with. So the roadway, when you look at Northwest 36th Street, in the west where the project begins, the roadway is primarily 6 lanes, 40 miles per hour. The sidewalk and bike lanes are not continuous in this section. And then as you cross over Lejeune or that iron triangle area, the speed limit drops to 30 miles per hour and the roadway varies between 4 and 2 lanes of travel. And there is some on-street parking and sharrows or shared bike lane markings with the roadway in that area. So again, the context of the west, as noted, is different from the context in the east. This shows the bicycle lanes map. And as you can see in the west, the green markings show where there are designated bicycle lanes. And then east of Lejeune, there are those sharrows or those markings which let people know that they need to share the roadway with a bicycle. So as you can see, there is a large gap of bicycle lanes missing, right bordering Miami International Airport and bordering your municipality. In addition, we've been looking at the pedestrian facilities coverage map, looking at where there are sidewalks and where there are gaps. So again, you can see the green indicating sidewalks on both the left and right side of the road. The yellow indicates just sidewalk presence on the left side or the north side, and the orange is the right side or the south side, and the red is a gap. So again, there are some areas where there are not continuous sidewalk facilities, and our study will look at completing those gaps. So as Carlos emphasized, public involvement is very important in this process. And that's why last month we held our first project advisory team meeting, and we also held our first virtual corridor workshop due to the pandemic. It was held in a virtual setting, similarly as tonight. We've been listening to all our stakeholders, and there are diverse communities and demographics along the corridor between Doral, Virginia Gardens, Miami Springs, Hialeah, and Miami. We know there's a bilingual or probably trilingual audience along the corridor, and there's different levels of education, auto ownership, accessibility to vehicles, to transit. So we've been trying to target all those different audiences, and we've been doing public outreach in English, Spanish, and Creole, and through newspapers, TVs, fact sheets, and sending information out to the public. So again, public involvement will be present and active throughout the project. This just, the next slide shows our study schedule. We did begin the existing conditions phase back in late March, early April, analyzing what are the existing conditions of the roadway. We had those 2 workshops in September. We are going to further develop the project description and the purpose and need, or why we are doing this project. We will be doing travel forecasting. We've been collecting traffic data along the corridor and looking at historical counts due to a COVID pandemic, seeing what historically has been occurring on the corridor in terms of the traffic counts. Then we're going to come back to the project advisory team or the PAT team in April and host another corridor workshop. It probably will be virtual, but it might be a hybrid one depending on where we are with the pandemic as well. And then we'll be developing concepts and presenting those back to you all to get your feedback on those concepts. And then we have a third corridor workshop and PAT meeting. And finally, at the end, another corridor workshop. So we actually have 4 corridor public workshops in total. And we need to come up with final recommendations using the input we've received from you all and through the public and through our engineering analysis and environmental analysis. And we'll wrap that into a final report for November 2021. Then DOT will take that final report and use that information to guide the project into the next phase, which is the PD&E or project development and environment phase. And public outreach will be conducted throughout the study process. Our team is available to meet with you on other occasions. If you want us to come back to you, we're happy to do that. If you have specific questions, we're more than happy to engage with you on multiple occasions, however many you want. So with that, I think we'll open it up to any questions, concerns, and input, and we really value your input. So we'd be happy to hear from you tonight. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. I do, Mayor.
I might have one myself.
Go ahead, Councilman. No, you go ahead. I've got a few. Okay, first of all, thank you very much. That was very informative, and we really appreciate your taking the time to make the presentation to us and include us. And I know you said that there's the 3 phases. My understanding is this planning phase, you started it in March 2020, and it usually lasts about 2 years. So we're, let's see, about almost a year into it. Is that right?
That's certainly accurate. We gave our consultant team, I guess, what is called a notice to proceed towards the end of March. But technically, we started the effort in April of this year.
Okay.
So it hasn't even been a year just yet.
So probably by April or by March 2022, you expect to move into the development phase, right?
Correct. And actually earlier than that, we expect to finalize this planning effort in November. I would say towards the end of calendar year 21, December of 2021 or next year. Hopefully around this time, November, December, we'll have a final document that includes our potential recommendations for improvements. And that would essentially be the business case for the next phase, for what is called the PD&E phase that you see in red in the screen. Correct.
Okay. The Iron Triangle you said was Lejeune 36th Street. Is that in South River Drive, or what was the third component of that?
US 27 is the
Right one.
US 27 of South River Drive. Yeah, combination of those. That entire area there we've looked at for the last 1.5 to 2 years, and now we have a final recommendation with some conceptual recommendations for improvement in that area. Our effort right now has to account for that, and that's one of the reasons why we included it here as a major project. It's really an interchange project, since it has, as I mentioned, several facilities on 42nd Avenue, US 27, Okeechobee, and now a portion of 36th Street. So, and I'm sure you folks are quite familiar with that area there, since it's extremely difficult to navigate. So we are looking at that area. Correct.
So then the from the west, from Palmetto Expressway, is it your plan, because you've already got State Road 112 there, which connects to US 1, or close enough to US 1 to I-95. Is your plan to connect to State Road 112? Is that the real purpose, or you're thinking of creating a whole new corridor adjacent to 112? I'm not sure where that connection is from. I understand 36th Street corridor, what you're looking at, but where's the connection there? Is it all the way a whole new corridor? Or
well, let me answer that question. I want to be very careful right now how I answer that. And the reason why is because from the very beginning, of a process. We started collecting data, looking at existing or previous studies. We're not at the stage where we can actually convincingly or to make a statement in terms of the types of improvements that this is going to require. We are going to do our analysis. What we have right now is some recommendations in and around the 42nd Avenue, 36th Street as part of that urban mobility project. And we'll be more than happy to kind of show you and point you in that direction what those concepts would look like. But adjacent corridors, we're not there yet. It's extremely premature. And in terms of 112, I have to point out that although it's a state road 112, it is a facility that is actually managed by Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. We're not the ones, or as the department does not have jurisdiction. We do have Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, or MDX, as one of our stakeholders, or what we call our sister agencies. We coordinate and work very closely for any potential conceptual improvements and ideas that may benefit the entire area. But to answer the question once again, we're at the very early stages to define the kinds of improvements that this study is going to yield.
Okay, and I know you said one of the stakeholders was Doral. You mentioned one of the stakeholders. In my understanding of, if we're looking at going east from the Palmetto Expressway, I only see Doral as a stakeholder in that all the freight that goes in and out of Doral, and they're a very commercial industrial area and have a great deal of freight that's traveling in and out, would be using the 36th Street corridor to go east and vice versa, and coming from the east along the 36th Street corridor to Doral, right?
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So this would facilitate the movement of freight in and out of a very industrial commercial area.
Yes, and what I meant to describe in terms of stakeholders, and perhaps I didn't do such a great job of pointing that out, that we heard from several municipalities, the municipalities that have been listed in our documentation, whether it was from your end on City of Miami Springs, we heard from unincorporated Miami-Dade County. We even heard from the City of Hialeah, and this is part of an effort that we have in the districts called planning listening sessions. Those are sessions where we bring the municipalities, our stakeholders, our partners, and we invite them to come to the districts, and they basically let us know the problem areas in their jurisdiction where you have part of the state roadway system in the areas. And we try to come up with some potential studies, solutions, or implement actual projects that are going to relieve those kinds of issues. That's exactly what I meant. In terms of frame mobility, I think you can make an argument that the corridor, by being in close proximity to a major load center like Miami International Airport, it's critical, not only for the city of Doral, where you find a lot of warehousing, cold temperature or temperature control facilities for either produce or a flower business. It benefits several communities, not only, like I said, city of Doral, but also city of Hialeah and the town of Metley way out west. And that's where and certainly since you, as I mentioned, you have a major load center. As you may understand, and I'm not sure if you folks are quite familiar with a typical freight mobility or a truck movement with freight out of Miami International Airport, for the most part, you would probably see access through Northwest 67th Avenue. That's a major access point to the air cargo facility, which is on the southwest portion of the airport. You cannot see it from this area. But essentially, one of the outlet points is either inlet and outlet, egress and egress points are 36th Street. And it's the typical movement, as I mentioned, is a container that comes out of Miami International Airport, and it heads out west to the warehousing in assets and the portion of West Miami, whether it's City of Doral, some go to City of Hialeah, and certainly town of Metley. So that's what we meant by stakeholders that have have a major benefit into the improvements in this corridor, especially on the western segment.
And and to that point, that right now there are measures in place that direct that freight traffic, then they don't impact our city. And our city, obviously, if we increase the corridor along 36th Street, the impact, the greatest impact to our city, in addition to the noise and increased traffic going on the southern border of our city, but also the air pollution. You know, we're going to increase the carbon dioxide and other emissions from vehicles that burn fossil fuels that will be traveling along the border of our city. So it's not just the noise, it's the air pollution that would directly impact our city because we'll be right there and subjected to it. So I hope, you know, during this planning period that we can talk a good deal and just make sure that whatever you're considering, I know that one of the, when you were talking of the purpose and the need, you were listing several issues such as safety and mobility, economic viability, freight mobility, but the impact to the surrounding communities, and that would be us. Miami Springs is a community that has been here before the airport was here, you know, before everything built around us. I hope that FDOT seriously considers that, and, you know, the importance of making sure that whatever is planned, and I understand we have to move forward with progress, but we really do need to protect the communities that would be the most affected by this, and I don't see the benefit, you know, that we can get, and I just hope that that is a major consideration in this planning phase.
And I'll answer that with a resounding yes. Environmental protection is definitely at the top of our list as well. If you look at our mission statement as an agency, you know, I'll paraphrase it, but essentially we are here to deliver a safe and efficient transportation system that not only looks at, you know, economic vitality, but it's also looking at environmental aspects. And so we take that very seriously.
And Mr. Castro, I have one last question, and because I know the rest of the council has. Why wouldn't you just expand the corridor south of the airport, the 836? That is already a corridor from the Palmetto to US 1. It's an existing corridor. It wouldn't impact any other communities because they already have that. Why wouldn't that be a viable solution?
We don't know yet what the viable solutions are going to be, and that's one of the reasons why we're undertaking the effort right now. We have certainly, I mentioned earlier, jurisdiction in certain state roadways, and some state roadways are not part of our jurisdiction. I think 112, State Road 112 is the perfect example I mentioned as well. But again, that's one of the main reasons why I pointed out in the very beginning of the presentation. I wanted to make sure that I got that message across. We're at the very early stages of a process to deliver tangible solutions. We're analyzing data, collecting data. We don't know what the viable solutions may very well be. It's quite possible that the viable solutions, it's what is called a no bill. There are no solutions, right? And we say as it is. Now, that's part of our process. And again, I don't, you know, I want to make sure that, you know, we explain the process so that we don't alarm anybody when we have these types of studies. We're not looking at capacity or expansion yet. You know, we need to analyze the corridor, and that may very well be pretty tough, you know, I'll be honest with you, since you have limitations on right-of-way. But again, that's very premature in terms of what those viable solutions are. In 1 year, we should be able to tell you, you know, based on our analysis and our evaluation process, where we stand in terms of those conceptual recommendations. And I say the recommendations need to be vetted through the process with the public, right? That's something that I also want to make sure, you know, the council members understand it. Our vision for improving a corridor has to have input and buy-in from the community. there are processes in place where as we move forward with a potential phase, the PD&E on the project development environmental side, where the public has the right to weigh in and will weigh in as we move forward. So I guess the point I'm trying to make again is, there's always going to be a process, a mechanism where we bring the public and the communities that are directly or indirectly affected to have their say and to have their seat at the table, so to speak, to make sure that we account for the input, for whether, for objections, approvals, or simply, blessings, so to speak. But again, I keep going back to that same slide number 12, where we talk about public outreach at every step of the way. We are not going to come in and develop a set of recommendations that are going to be detrimental to a specific group, a specific community, or a specific business. That's one of the reasons also I mentioned that we've held stakeholder meetings with businesses. The business community is very important to the department. That's just as much as the general public. So I want to make sure I get that point across, and I'm able to make a statement that addresses your concerns moving forward.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your answers.
Anybody else have a question?
Mr. Castro.
Mr. Castro, Councilman Bob Best.
Hello, sir.
Hi, good evening. I appreciate the dichotomy between business and residential. I get that. I also appreciate the fact that Hialeah has 250,000 people, Doral 70,000+. Doral and Medley maybe 2,400 each, and Miami Springs just shy of 15,000. How much does this weigh into how you address this thing going forward?
So I often answer questions like that in terms of what I describe as equity in planning. And what I mean by that is we're going to look at modes and groups in the same manner. Of course, there are priorities, right? And that's kind of the difficult process when you start prioritizing solutions or potential recommendations to arrive at solutions in an area. And I'll tell you one thing that's going to be the very top of our list as an agency is safety. And no matter what the issues are, safety is always going to be at the very top of our list. So again, we look at, and I mentioned earlier several times, I suppose, and I mentioned multimodal, and even our collateral material presentation material makes an effort, I guess a subliminal effort, so to speak, with our icons and our material here to describe various modes of transportation. And the actual study itself is aptly named multimodal. It's multiple modes of transportation. We're looking at potential solutions for issues, not only for passenger operations and vehicles, businesses, pedestrians, cyclists, general transit options, and certainly we're not going to forget about a major load center in the area like Miami International Airport and so forth. So the rail facilities as well to the west of the project, and certainly the freight mobility aspect. So once again, to answer your question in terms of how we looked at population and how does that weigh in, Daphne pointed out some other efforts that I've undertaken myself in the district, and they're strictly focused on freight mobility, and we call those sub-area freight planning efforts. So we have actually worked with multiple municipalities in Miami-Dade County. I devised a strategy on the freight mobility side to start looking and working with those municipalities, whether it was the city of Doral, the town of Medley, city of Opa-locka, and so forth. We even looked at the Miami River, and we've heard the issues with 36th Street from a lot of these folks, and that's mainly driven by the freight volume and the impact of a major load center like Miami International Airport.
Mr. Castro, thank you for your response. And I appreciate what you said earlier, relative to your 6 points: the funding, the mobile efficiency, the economic impacts, the freight mobility, the multimodal access, and the environmental issues. I get all that. But what benefit is this to Miami Springs? Quite frankly, I think you guys are off base on this. What you ought to be pursuing is light rail countywide.
Well, I'll tell you, we have I guess a toolbox in our, I guess, our what's called a scope of services or technical instructions for our consultants, where we define, I guess, a set of tools and strategies to start looking at solutions. But again, I will point out that, the county as a whole has a pretty extensive effort when it comes to transit, and that's what is called the SMART plans, the Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit SMART plan. And one of those SMART plans, or SMART corridors as they're called, is Northwest 27th Avenue. It's actually towards the east of this portion of the corridor, but that's actually a transit related project in the vicinity, and the Department of Transportation District 6 is leading it as well, has led the effort. So, certainly, those ideas on transit are viable or potentially viable, I should say, but we need to be able to make the case. And our planning efforts is the very beginning of that process to make a business case. We need to be able to justify solutions with technical analysis, and this is what this effort entails. As I said earlier, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
I understand your point. I get it. You're talking an 8-9 mile corridor.
Yes, sir.
What benefit is that going to be to the citizens of Miami Springs? I understand the benefit to the county, but to the city of Miami Springs, what benefit?
Benefits, safety benefits in the general area between Palmetto, accessibility. We want to facilitate access. I know there are several issues across from Miami International Airport, especially what's called Perimeter Drive. We want to reduce accidents in the area. Safety is at the very top of the list. Pedestrian accessibility, bicyclists, we mentioned that in our material. So the benefits will be addressed. Again, we want to hear what the issues are. What kind of problems do you experience with 36th Street? Certainly congestion is one of those. How do we remedy congestion? Right, that's one solution. Or
Mr. Castro, most people in Miami Springs can get to the airport in 5 minutes by automobile.
noted, sir.
Anybody else?
I've got a quick question. Yeah, I had a question. The ultimate recommendations of your study, they're meant to inform future construction projects, but there's no guarantee that all of your recommendations are going to be implemented by the various municipalities or government agencies. Is that correct?
Correct. And again, our recommendations, I'm sorry, our recommendations are going to be on the corridor that we have jurisdiction, right? On 36th Street.
I just want to be clear that the purpose of your study is to recommend these things. There's no guarantee that all these things are going to come to fruition and that they'll be implemented. That's correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay,
that is correct.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I like to start with a positive. I want to thank you for what you're doing. One thing I like about your approach is the fact that you're going to the residents and listening to them, because that doesn't happen a lot at the county level. They don't come to the municipalities and listen to us. So I thank you for that. But I have to tell you, I'm with Councilman Bob Best. I'm part of the Dade County League of Cities. I'm part of the Transportation Board. And for years now, we've been advocating light rail. The infrastructure is there, it's just sitting there, and we're not doing anything about it. I think that might be a good start. So where do you all stand on that?
Yeah. Again, those are potential solutions. We're not at the moment in our effort where we can definitively say that light rail is a solution. And I'm sorry that I'm sort of giving you a very repetitive answer in terms of future recommendations. We are not there yet. We are going to look at every single mode of transportation across the board on the transit side, on the pedestrian side, on the passenger operations side. And I mentioned the word equity, or the phrase equity in planning. We're looking at all modes and we're trying to be equitable. Again, potential recommendations do not necessarily translate into future construction projects. They need to be vetted through multiple phases. And we showed you that slide before in the project delivery cycle. Yes, we hear, I think it's clear, one of the comments that our consultants are taking notes on is certainly light rail. We're hearing convincingly that is something that you are certainly amenable to. So again, this is part of the process when we hear from relevant municipalities or personnel, businesses, and elected officials as well. What are the issues, and what do you see as a future viable potential recommendation solution for a corridor, or for an area, or for an intersection? So we're taking notes, and we are certainly documenting this engagement as part of our job. Our duties and responsibilities include documenting and moving forward with those recommendations, and then to be accounted for. So, but again, I think we're somewhat premature in the process as far as viable or potentially viable solutions.
I just want to add one last thing, Mayor. The biggest voice in our committee has always been Commissioner Bobo. He's been fighting for light rail for years. So I just wanted to add that to the fact that that's something we need to look at. Like I said, the infrastructure is there. It would be really cheap to start light rail. Thank you for your presentation today.
Any further? Everything okay? We thank you for
Mayor, if I might. Mr. Castro, just as a parting shot, this body, as a city council in Miami Springs over the years, has always worked very well with the county. We've always been amenable to their issues, to their thoughts. We hope going forward, you're amenable to ours.
Absolutely, count on it. And as our consultant project manager mentioned, we'll be more than happy to come back to this council and report on our progress and let you know what we're working on. I think that's a fair agreement and a fair statement that we're going to follow through with, is to come back. And that's only going to show you our interest and our commitment to work with our communities and relevant stakeholders. We certainly want to hear from you once again. We want to account for your input, your feedback, and we want to hear all. Whether you have reservations about how we're doing our business, that's all on the table. We would like to hear. We welcome the opportunity to hear those things. Objections, absolutely. If you feel that you're complaining, you're not. That's part of our job here, to hear from our community, and we take this very seriously in the process, sir.
Through the chair, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Carlos, before we go, could you email me a copy of your presentation?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear that. Was that a question directed to us?
Yes, I'm wondering if you or Maria can email me a copy of your PowerPoint presentation that you just did.
Absolutely. We're going to follow with our presentation material. We have some additional collaterals, a fact sheet that essentially summarizes in 2 pages what the effort entails. And we're also going to send you a link to our project website where we have a lot of this information. So Maria, if you will, at some point, let's forward that information, and especially the website address that will have all that relevant information. Thank you.
Mr. Castro, I have one more question, because now that you presented this information, I think we all need some time to let it digest and think of obviously what happens in the city, and right
now the negative impact seems to greatly outweigh any potential beneficial to our city. But for us to kind of present a list of items that we're concerned about, what would be the best way to do that? Would that be to email you? To how do we communicate and put together topics?
Yes.
I mean, this meeting is great, but we've just kind of talked about the things. I think I would like to list them.
Of course, and it's only natural that we want to give you folks a chance to digest the information we have provided. And yes, you are more than welcome to contact me directly as a project manager. We have various ways of communication. Email is fine. We have our consultant project manager, Daphne Spanos, and also our public involvement or public engagement consultant, Maria Alzate. So either one of us we'll be more than happy to receive your emails.
And would that be the appropriate way to document what our concerns are with this project by email, or is there some other?
Email is perfectly fine. That becomes part of the record, and at the same time, we document minutes, feedback, and additional comments that we receive from our stakeholders in the general public or the community or elected officials at large. Yes. So, but email is fine. What we do, as I said, is we make that part of the record. That becomes part of the files, and we document it within our process. So email is perfectly fine. We didn't get a chance to show you the contact information slide at the very end of the presentation, but it's there. It has my email address. It has our telephone numbers. If you get a chance, yeah.
Okay.
We'll show it up on the screen in a few minutes. Yeah, there it is.
In order to allow our residents to hear the presentation directly and voice their concerns to you directly or their input, they may very well have positive recommendations that they'd like to make. Is it possible to provide for us to schedule I forget what we call them, but a town meeting, I guess, where you could make the presentation and then hear from our residents?
Absolutely. We'll be more than happy to come back and do and we are going to have, by the way, an opportunity to do that with some workshops. Those are coming soon. And in fact, we held what we called a public workshop. We invited the residents, we invited the community. Certainly it's a little bit more difficult during these trying times as we actually have to work in a virtual setting. But especially the time, I know after a certain time, after 5, 6 o'clock, it's very difficult for especially those that have small children or families or any other duties and responsibilities besides their regular jobs. I happen to have a 1-year-old. I'm making a it's very difficult, a considerable effort at this moment to be here. But certainly we're going to follow up with clear information in terms of those workshops, those virtual workshops, where the community can participate. But the offer stands as well. We'll be more than happy to hold a specialized meeting for the city of Miami Springs, of course, and your residents.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Anything else? Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you again.
We go to open forum. We have nobody here to hear, but anybody on the Zoom?
Anybody who wishes to speak on an item in the general business of the city may do so in person or via Zoom call. They can dial in to 305-805-5151 or 305-805-5152 by entering the meeting ID. Meeting ID is 863-951-24146 and *6 to unmute yourself when you enter. If you're using the Zoom app, you just raise your hand and we'll be able to call on you. We have no one at this time, but
Okay. If anybody buzzes in, we'll go back to it. Okay, we go to 6A, October 26, 2020 regular council meeting. Entertain motion.
Motion to move 6A, sir.
Who second?
Jamie.
Call the vote.
Vice Mayor Betelanda,
Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilwoman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Mayor Bain.
Yes, we go to 9, consent agenda. There's any 10, no business. 11, new business, request to approve a Miami Springs COVID-19 $250 grocery gift card program.
Yes, Mayor and Council, staff request approval or an expenditure in an amount not to exceed $140,000 to Milam Supermarket for the acquisition of approximately 560 $250 grocery gift cards to be issued to eligible households in the city under the county's CARES Act program. Milam's, Mr. Max Milam has agreed to provide us an additional 20 cards free of charge. That's a $5,000 donation on his part. So we will be able to distribute 580 cards instead of 560. Thank you to Milam's. And this cost will be reimbursed by the county, so there will be no impact on our budget. And just to give you an update, as of today, we have received 422 applications, and 203 of them are residents 62 and over. So about half of them are seniors. And we're still getting, we're going to open it up for tomorrow since we were closed yesterday. We had quite a lot of activity today, and we hope that tomorrow they'll probably be all gone.
I want to thank the Commissioner Sosa, who at the meeting, I believe Commissioner Diaz too. I called her up and thanked her. Looked like they were gonna skip right over us again, and she fought for us. And we're gonna thank her. If you haven't already talked to her, thank her for her. I guess what you want to call pushing the buttons to
Her
get the money
support.
for us. Okay. So I need a motion to approve.
Through the chair, I would enthusiastically support 11A.
Second, I got a first and second. Call the vote.
Vice Mayor Betelanda,
Yes. Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilwoman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Mayor Bain.
Yes.
Thank you.
We go to 12A, a request.
And before we go to 12, I just want to tell you that these last 3 days have been eye openers for me. When you see the need that we have in the city, it's really sad to see how many people are hurting out there, and that we're able to do this for them. It's great.
And for Max stepping up at the additional 20.
Yeah.
That was big.
And also, reaching out to families, because it's our seniors, obviously, a lot of them are in need, but there's so many families too. And I know I've been trying to reach out to organizations and let them know about the, for families that need it, to be sure to apply for this.
Just want to add something, Councilman Best. Max has always been very generous to our residents and to all our clubs. But yes, absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie.
We go to 12A, request.
12A, this is Councilman Fidel requested a discussion item on tonight's agenda regarding the car show the city normally holds at the Circle each December. As part of the discussion, he requested for us to come up with projected costs of what it costs to run the show, either at the Circle or at the Mansion. And as I put in my memo, at the Circle, you're talking about the $1,500 charge for jumping jack and about $1,510 for police. So the total cost is about $3,010 to hold it at the Circle, and that would also entail closing the Circle during that period of time. If we held it at the Mansion, the cost would be $1,500 for jumping jack, $700 for police officers, and I have to add that Councilman Fayette provided me a memo from the Mansion that they would also like to be reimbursed $480 for cleanup costs, post-event cleanup, and Curtis Mansion staff. So the total cost would then go to $2,680 for holding at the Mansion. It's still cheaper than the Circle, and it won't involve closing the Circle now.
You have the floor.
So I thank you, William, for that. So Oh, the other thing that I spoke with the executive director, Ms. Arias of the mansion, was just in her discussions with Jumping Jack and how they would do the parking. And I think it had been floated at first that people would be able to park inside, even though there'd be cars and kind of pedestrians walking around looking at cars. And so I would favor going ahead and doing this at the mansion. It's cheaper than what it would cost us to do it at the Circle. But I think Ms. Arias also said in that memo, if there's a way that the city would allow for parking to happen on the swale, then people can park on the swale, kind of like they do on 4th of July, and then walk, obviously cross the street, go over to the mansion. But I think if we do that and we reimburse the mansion for the cost, so that it doesn't come at a cost to them, I feel like we're saving money and we can get this done. So I'd like to.
What date
propose
are
it.
you talking about?
Well, I think this is a date in December. I don't think a date has been, is there a date yet?
We still have to.
Yeah, the November one is
No,
over,
I'm
but
not
this would be the
talking,
December.
yeah, I
one.
understand, but what date do we normally do car show in December?
Usually we do it right before we do the Christmas event on the Circle.
So like the.
So I'll get with
Okay.
Omar and come up with a date based on.
All right, but we could vote on whether we want to do it pending date, pending the date, right?
Yeah.
Well, just to do it and let you decide.
I'd like
on the date.
to,
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to add something because I want to thank you for bringing this back up again. A couple of things for parking. I think Dan is here. Maybe we can park at his house.
Oh, Danny said that?
Dan said we can park at his house.
Did he?
Yeah, I don't know. He's here.
I haven't heard that from him. I have not.
Now, the other thing is I wanted to do it in November, and obviously it didn't go well that night. So what I did is I reached out to a friend, and he sponsored the November show. Okay, it was supposed to have been held last week, but obviously we had last Sunday, but obviously we had the hurricane or the tropical storm, so it got canceled. Now we wanted to do it this weekend, but speaking to Jumping Jack, he figured that it might not be a good idea to move it to this week. It's too close to Thanksgiving, and also there's a lot of car shows going out through the county, so he's afraid that we weren't going to get a good crowd out there. So what we did is we're going to move it to the December show. Okay. Now, if you guys want to do a show at the mansion, my suggestion is that we use that fund for a January show, because right now I'm holding a check that I didn't use in November, and we can use that check for the December show. These checks have an expiration date, so I don't think it's a good idea for me to hold on to this check until January. If we can just move it back, I think we should have one in January too. Is to expose the mansion that we are open, but I have the money to pay for the December show. So I asked.
Would that sponsorship check cover the cost of $2,680?
No, I have a $1,500 check. That's what I was going to give Jumping Jack. Now, I was not aware that they were charging us for cleanup and all that. Because I haven't.
Well, those are just costs of them whenever they do any event.
Right,
But there's also the police. The police
Right, well,
would have to come from the city. as well.
We had discussed, William and I, and the city was going to provide the police. So the only extra cost that I see there is the cleaning up and the crew.
Right, which is $480.
Now, I have $1,500 that I like to use for the December show, but I like to see if we can use the funding for another show in January.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do then, huh? We're gonna use the $1,500 to do the show that Mr. Facette wanted to do with the cost of the cleanup coming from the city. So then when we meet in December, we'll decide on whether we want to do another show in January and what date we would like to do it.
So through the chair, you want to do one?
Just do, well, yeah, you're gonna do this one
We're
here.
talking 26.
We're gonna use it for
It's
1,500
15
to do this the date
2680.
when he talks to Omar. And the city will pick up the cost of the cleanup
And the police.
and the police.
Through the chair, my only concern about this, as I mentioned at our last meeting when it came up, is the spike in this virus rate
Well,
and the distancing and stuff. Can you guarantee that there's going to be distancing and we're not going to have hits from this thing, from this?
Well, that's
I
part of
can't-
the.
I mean, why should we-
Nobody can guarantee
But
that.
it is
No, of course not,
outdoors.
Bill.
The
Nobody can
councilman, yes, it is outdoors and.
It is outdoors to your credit.
And it's got a beautiful grounds, and I think this is a great opportunity for us to showcase, this historic treasure that we have in
It's
Miami
no
I think we
Springs.
can showcase the treasure in March or April. too.
Well,
No,
and we
it's
hope
no
they
different
can
than the
again.
farmer's market that we hold right now every Saturday.
Right, you're right.
And
Right. I gotta
I think
concern
it's
with
a
that.
great idea.
Or the
Any
beverage.
chance we
Alright,
get
so
to-
I need a motion to
I'm gonna, through the chair, I'm gonna go along with
what I said.
with, well, yeah, but with Councilman Behet's presentation.
Yeah, but I mean, with the
and-
fund, as far
and
as.
motion to move the item,
Okay, with, as,
and you said it to him.
no,
You can
no,
take
I
credit.
did not. I meant, no. It's not about the thing. It's about how we're going to make the motion of that we're going to fund the cost above the $1,500.
Over to 1,500 to the 2,680, yes.
Right, okay.
Yes, sir.
So
That's my
that's
motion.
the motion.
Yes, Mayor.
I need a second.
Oh.
Call the vote.
Vice Mayor Petrolanda,
Absolutely, yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilwoman Mitchell,
Yes,
Councilman Behet.
Yes.
And Mayor Bain.
Yes, and that's when it comes to public together, it saves things for everybody. And
Yes,
that
sir.
was good.
and thank you.
Councilman Petrolani, you did a nice job.
Thank you.
I don't know
Yeah,
what
he kept
you
it
sold
coming.
to get that
He kept-
$15, but you did a nice
I
job.
just thought it was the right thing to do in
Yes.
November.
But the person that's, do you want to say the person that's given the
I will,
1,500, or
yeah,
they
I
want
will.
to stay,
Yes, I'm
they
gonna do
want
it.
to stay anonymous?
No, I'm gonna do it at the end.
Okay, at the end of the meeting,
Yes, yes,
I'll let you go first.
thank you.
Okay, we go to request from, oh, this is another one about
Oh,
the
another,
4th of
yeah.
July.
Councilman
event.
Behet again.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Gonna be.
Last meeting, we voted to have the fireworks show, the same kind of fireworks show that we've always had. And I spoke publicly about that. I feel that there are residents who felt a little bit shortchanged because last year, when it was a time to celebrate the birth of our nation, we did the right thing as a city and we shut it down. We didn't do it because of the pandemic at the same time that there were people who were not being socially distant in the name and the spirit of protesting this country sometimes. So I just felt some residents feel a little bit shortchanged. So I would like to see if we could get consensus to have Omar Luna, the Parks and Recs Department, to see if they can maybe make some recommendations for some type of additional event that we could do this coming 4th of July, so we could do a little something special for the residents of Miami Springs, since we've all been in quarantine and haven't been able to do much. I think it doesn't have to be $16,000 worth, but I think that Omar can make some recommendations. He had some ideas from some conversations I had with them. So you think we can get some consensus to have them bring us some ideas?
Including the parade, because as far as I'm concerned, the parade's still on the table for this year for July,
Right,
unless,
right,
you know,
right.
we, as we
Yeah,
get
this would be
closer,
something in
so.
addition to.
I think it goes back to when they used to have the parade after parade finished. We had like basically a somewhat of a carnival in the back there.
Okay,
And I think that's where, we don't do that anymore. The different clubs would set up a booth, ice cones, whatever, hot dogs. And something in that just whether we can get a little bit of rides for the kids or something like that.
I wouldn't.
Because hopefully by this July, with the vaccine that seems to be positive, maybe this July we can celebrate what's going on. And since we never spent the 15,000 in this past budget, which carried over to the general fund for this year, and this was my whole proposal with the double fireworks, but it didn't work out. We can at least maybe look into sponsoring that kind of a situation.
Right.
So
I'm,
even somewhat of a taste of springs. I mean, we can come up with ideas.
whatever happened to that?
Well, that, you know, you, as as we're talking here and as he brought it up, there's a lot of ideas, but it's like, you know, it becomes who wants to do the organization and who wants to do it.
Yeah.
We do have somebody that does a lot of planning like that in our city, and maybe we could come up with some with Omar and his staff. So I have consensus. I'm going
Through
for
the
it.
chair, I'm amenable to this to an extent. We don't know where we're gonna be then. So, I mean, this is all like, you know,
Well,
hypothetical.
If anything,
But I'm amenable to it,
But
but
if
let's come up with
anything, you're
something,
thinking
let's let
ahead.
the administration.
if anything, you're thinking ahead, and if something doesn't work out, but you're getting in front of it.
I'm down.
You okay? All right, because I'm not gonna be here anyway, so I'll be
No, but
serving hot dogs.
but you're mayor now, though.
No, but I'll be serving hot dogs.
We'll be hunting 4th of
I'll be
July.
serving hot dogs and looking to somebody to complain about the city.
Oh, Billy.
Okay, I got a consensus to go ahead for staff to
You do, sir.
to research that. Okay, now, we go into the important part of the meeting,
Exactly.
the end. We go. Does city attorney anything from you tonight? Okay. You don't want to say anything to Jaime?
I wasn't sure if we were doing. later.
Well, this is the end of the meeting.
It
This
is, so
it.
why don't, can I say something afterwards?
No, I go
Why?
last.
Can
No,
I
he
go
goes
before
last.
you?
He goes last.
You could go, okay. We'll go to, is Dan still here?
No, he left.
Dan had to leave.
Dan wanted to say that, he came here to show his face to you, but he left right away. Councilman Best, you're up.
Mayor, thank you. Hey, look at,
But wait, city manager first.
Of course.
Two things, Mayor. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. This is our last meeting before our Thanksgiving break. And I also wanted to take the opportunity to thank Councilman Petrolanda for his service over the last few years to the city. I know this is his last meeting, and it's sorry to see you go, but you know, I want to thank you, and it was great working with you all these years. And the only thing I'm going to hold against you is that you voted against me for city, but that's okay.
Did he?
That's,
Oh, that's right.
I didn't vote against you. I voted that we should go out and get more people and interview people. That's what I voted.
How about
But-
we remember?
but I
that?
changed your vote.
Don't forget,
You got my vote?
I changed your vote over the years.
yeah, but don't forget something. He sometimes doesn't remember what he voted for anyway.
Uh-oh.
Councilman Best,
Thank you.
you're up, Councilman Best.
All I can say is William, your official word. Jamie as well, my colleague, my good friend, Councilman Petrolanda, Group 4. Thanks for the efforts and the things that you have brought forth for the citizens of this town over the last 8 years, just shy of. And I know you succeed as a school teacher. And you got a couple other things going right now, and so you're not going anywhere. You're going to be around. And but thanks so much. And I'd like to thank the city yesterday, especially Caitlin Smith. Caitlin Smith for putting on that Veterans Day thing out there, and she took notes very well from Patty Bradley. By the way, she had this thing nailed yesterday, and we were able to pull this off. And right at the end of it, we kept it to about 30 minutes, and right at the end of it, it started raining. So the gods were with us yesterday to get that thing across. And happy Veterans Day to everybody out there. Happy Thanksgiving. And thank you, Mayor.
You got it, Councilwoman Mitchell.
I wanted to, thank Councilman Best in the city for the Veterans Day ceremony we put on yesterday. It's really, you know, with the pandemic, so many things have been cut short, and I think that was just exceptionally well done, and it was outdoors, but and Councilman Best spoke very, very well. I thought your speech was excellent. But I wanted to mention that one of the Girl Scout troop, Connie Rodriguez's Girl Scout troop, which I think we all, 2564, I found out at the ceremony that because so many veterans would not be able to make the ceremony, because it makes my heart, it just brings tears to my eyes, the thought of what they're doing. Because they realize that so many veterans, because of the inclement weather and the pandemic and all, would not make the ceremony, which is true. We certainly had a very few veterans that were able to make it. They asked through the city, and they reached out to a lot of people in the community to find out the names and the addresses of all the veterans in Miami Springs. And they are going and putting an American flag in the front yard of every single veteran in Miami Springs, those Girl Scouts. That is just so far and beyond. And the Scouts have just done so much for our community. And this is just an example of things that, you know, we are also grateful for their thoughtfulness and hard work.
Councilwoman, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And to thank you for the Scouts, the Boy Scouts that were there for the ceremony also. The other thing is with the FDOT presentation that we had now, obviously, this is in the planning stage, but there's a lot of momentum for this to happen because of the freight and, you know, the intermodal that we have with the railroads, and then Doral and everything that's happening. So this has got a lot of weight behind it to make it happen. I would like to, with the consensus of the council, to have scheduled a town hall meeting, I think for January, because obviously we're in the middle of of the session, but if William, if everyone's okay, to reach out to FDOT and see if we can schedule a town hall meeting for January where the residents,
Through the chair, I'm fine with that.
that you could
I'll
listen.
go, I'll go with that as long as there's substance.
Well,
Yeah,
it-
roughly,
You know,
yeah.
I don't want to go,
just listen
like
to what
tonight,
Cody heard.
it's my opinion. We talked about something that they don't even know what they're proposing yet.
This is critical, Mayor, because they're in the planning stage. This is what they use to justify later when they get to the development. We offered 2 years of planning and they will rely on that we spent 2 years listening. So it's very critical
Again,
that
I'll go
we
with the
put the
thing,
input
but
and that
I
we
don't
allow.
want, I don't want it to get into speculation where
Well,
I don't even know what they're
I
doing.
don't think they're gonna be ready to get a.
I mean,
Well, I think it's
we can always
important.
give initial feedback.
I think it's important that during the planning stage, which is what they will use as saying, we had spent 2 years doing this, that we have a town hall meeting and we've allowed our residents to hear about the project early on
And weigh in.
and weigh in. And that's recorded because our back and forth right now is not very meaningful because it's obviously, we're just discussing with them. So if that is okay with the rest of the council, to ask William to schedule something for January, if they're available, if not February, but.
If there's consensus, I'll reach out to them and see when they want to do it.
And let our community know about that. And then the
Through
other
the chair,
thing,
I'm in.
I'm not against letting people know what's going on. If there's something to know what's going on.
If I could just chime in, I actually sat through that presentation because they did a community outreach and I sat through it. They're in the planning stages of a study where they're gonna gather information to make recommendations. And along the way, they're going to do, things like that, like town halls where we can give feedback. But right now, they have no recommendations. They're at the planning stages of the study. And that's why I asked them, like on the record, like we may be dead and gone before some of these things ever even come to fruition. So I agree that we should give them feedback. I like your idea of having a list of concerns to give to them. But I don't think they have much for us to give them feedback
well,
on yet.
no, not to give feedback. Our residents need to know that that's the consideration is a corridor. And what's very important, when you mentioned that, you asked him about your plans, he said, what we have total control over is 36th Street corridor. They don't have 112.
Right.
So they're not going to do anything with 112 because that belongs to, the state,
Yeah, no,
whatever.
it's the 9 miles
But what
from
they
the
have
Palmetto
control
all the way
over
to US
is the
1
36th Street
along
corridor,
36th Street.
which is what directly impacts us. So I just want to be ahead of the curve on this.
Yep.
I think it's really
They
important.
didn't mention, but the only way they can do it is an overpass over the 36th.
Yes, and
And I was hoping one of you would, but I'll.
Did you
follow up
happen
with
to-
them. What effect is that? Right now, 36th Street is 6 lanes.
Did you
What
happen to,
effect will an overpass have? How would it look?
did you happen to notice, through the chair, did you happen to notice in that diagram that they showed where the red was all the undone? Did you see where some of that stuff was? North River Drive. stuff there.
so
Who's
anyway,
gonna put sidewalk and stuff through there?
let's just get
Oh, Billy's right, in a
public
way.
in, so that they're not surprised later on that this is being considered. And then the last thing I wanted to do is again mention to, what everyone's echoing to Councilman Petrolanda. It has been such a pleasure to work with you, such an honor. You work so hard. I'm really impressed with how hard you work for the community. You're constantly out there looking into things, asking questions, and you've really been just an inspiration, and thank you. I wish you all the best. I'm sorry that you're not going to be here.
Okay, so I wanted to, again, also reiterate and acknowledge the selfless service of Councilman Petrolanda. Thank you for everything you've done for your city, and we really appreciate you for that. Also wanted to just reiterate as well, I was at the Veterans Day ceremony and wonderfully emceed by Councilman Best, so thank you. You spoke very eloquently. Just wanted to say, also remind people today was community shredding day, and that got postponed to the 30th. I know it only happens like 4 times a year. And then lastly, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Keep your loved ones safe and healthy. Continue to wash our hands and wear masks and socially distance so we can continue to open up and do more and more things. Thank you.
You got it.
I also would like to echo everything the council said, and Councilman Petralanda, you've done an amazing job over the last several years. I unfortunately wasn't here the first half of your term, in office of the last like 8 years, but the last 4 years have been wonderful. I've seen you advocate for the city. We've traveled to Tallahassee. At least I've been up there the last 2 years, and I know that you've been going for several years to advocate. His advocacy at the League of Cities, I know the public doesn't always see that, but you all spend a lot of time advocating, not just at these meetings, but you spend a lot of time. It's not just your conversations with the residents, but you're out there and doing what you can to get the best possible results for the city. So it's been a pleasure to work.
Thank you. Thank you. May I start now?
Sure.
I thought I was gonna go first now.
No, I figured
You weren't
that you
glad.
get all the accolades. And
I
see, I haven't.
thought you said I was gonna
and
go first.
see, I'm doing this,
Did you say?
listen, I'm doing this because sometimes you don't have any protocol here in our, as much as I try in this seat. We never can give a person the final to leave office without having a dissertation of what's going on. So my plan was, everything's going really nice now. And my plan was to let you have your say, and then I'm gonna have the last word. So you had all these people give you a lot of kind things to say about you. And I know that we're here and we're taking the oath of the city to say the truth up here. So I would think that 95% of what they said is true. So you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I want to start by saying, William, it's not that I didn't vote for you.
Oh, you had to let him
Let
have
me
it.
start with that. It wasn't that. It was more like I thought the process for transparency, it would have been better for us to interview other people, but I was okay with voting for you if that process would have happened. I thought you were the best person, but for that reason, it was the only reason that I said what I said back then. Once you got not elected, but once they voted for you, I've been behind you 100% ever since. Your success is our success. Okay, that's what I wanted to say first. I want to thank. Last Monday when I left here, I felt a little disappointed that we weren't able to have a show at the mansion. So automatically on Tuesday, I called my friend to see if he would sponsor it, and right away he said he was on board. So I want to thank Gustavo from Roadway Towing. He stepped up with the money right away. He gave me a check, and we're ready to do it on this past Sunday. Unfortunately, we had the tropical storm and we had to cancel it. But I really want to thank Gustavo from Roadway for stepping up. I want to thank Bob. Another great year for Veterans Day. Another year. I don't know. Every year he just brings it up and up and up. I'm not sure where you're going to go next year.
Too kind, sir.
Okay. I want to thank the Girl Scouts. Love my flag. Love my flag. I don't know if you know, they went by all the veterans' houses. I'm not sure if Maria said it.
Maria did mention it
She
earlier.
mentioned that,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And they put a flag in front of all the veterans. So when I drove home and I saw it, it was kind of touching. And so I want to thank them for that. That was a very thoughtful gesture on their part. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Now I want to read a little bit of what I wrote. I'm not very good with goodbyes. I'll be honest with you. I hate goodbyes. I try to avoid them. I'm really good with hellos, but not with goodbyes. So I wrote something. It will take me a few minutes. Let me read it. So much to do, but no time left. All good things come to an end. And I reached the end. I don't have my glasses. Of my public service for now. I look forward to the next opportunity to serve our community. Again, for that's who I am. I'm a public servant. First, it's been an honor to represent Miami Springs in our community at all stages of the county level throughout all these years. Like Heidi mentioned, we've been going to Tallahassee and Dade County. That's what I've been doing. I've been representing our city at the state and at the county level. I'd like to thank my wife, Maria, for her support. Also, I need to thank all residents who have always supported me in every election. Every decision I've taken.
what I'm gonna do now is, I don't think I can read all this. I want to thank a few people. I want to thank Mayor Xavier Garcia. I want to thank Michael Windrum, Councilman Billy Bain. Yes, Councilman Billy Bain. Councilman George Loeb, Councilman Bob Best, Councilwomen Rosie Buckner, Mayor Billy Bain, Councilwoman Maria Mitchell, Councilwoman Zapata, and most recent Councilman Walter Fayette, correct?
Close enough.
Close enough. I've done a lot of initiatives, and I'm only one person up here. I'm one vote. And had I not been for these folks that I mentioned, none of these things would have come to fruition, because I'm just one vote. And I want to thank them for believing in me. Obviously, we might have a resident that calls us and says, hey, this is happening in the city, this is happening in my block. Or we might be walking around and notice something that's wrong. And we come to council and we share it with the rest of the council, and then we say, yes, it's a good idea. But that's the easy part. The hard part is the folks that make it happen, and that's them, right there, them. That's the, they do the hard part. We do the easy part. Okay, so I want to thank Ron Gorland. I want to thank Chief Bond, Magali, Jan Seaton, William Alonso, Chief Guzman, Erica, Paul, Omar, Tom Nash. I think the city's going to miss Tom Nash. Ulysses, Chris, Dan Espino, Heidi, and they couldn't have done it without their staff. So I want to thank their staff for everything they've done and everything they do. And I'll be back. Thank you.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about Councilman Petrolonga, and you know, he has a passion for this, what he does. You know, he's out there with Mr. Volvo, and he's out there over here. He has a passion for it. So they asked me, what do you think he's going to do when he's not going to be a councilman, to go ahead and do it? I said, I'll bet you $1 he's going to continue to do it. And if we need any help up here to get something, we can call him up, and he can get his tour company to get us some money, or we can, you know, we'll use him just like our little old Miami Springs lobbyist, you know, that we need to have here locally, and use his contacts to our benefit. I've enjoyed my time with you up here. And I think that you understand what you said is true, that sometimes we have initiatives that don't go through, but most of the time we come up here and we work together and we get it done. Yep. And pretty good. And you're very much in tune that the staff of the city is our job is easy because of the staff of the city, but they still have to have us to overlook them, you know. Jaime, you have a great retirement, and you have a great Thanksgiving. And I wish a great Thanksgiving to everybody in the community. Be safe, follow the guidelines as best that you can, but still, we still have to enjoy our families as much as possible over these times. We can't. I know that it's tough to say it. We got the way we got to live right now, but enjoy your families. My recommendation right now. My family, we're going to meet Thanksgiving in Tallahassee. They've already took all the kids out of daycare so that there's no problems there.
Are there any trees left up there?
Well, don't get me started. This is Jaime's night, but you know, I'm going to bring a global Earth picture of it, and you guys are going to go crazy over it. Wow. The people that love trees, anyway. But anyway, be safe. Enjoy your family. Recommendation: took the kids out of daycare till Thanksgiving's over so that nobody gets sick. And we're doing everything. I stopped playing poker until it's time to go. So we're going to do everything right. I recommend that to everybody so that you can enjoy your family. So when you get together, you have a good time. God bless Miami Springs. You got it. Congratulations, Jaime.
Yes, sir.